Yeah, I mean, we'll go back to the biggest issues this season. I don't know if it would be number one. It probably would be. I bet if they did have, a better offensive line, they would win a couple more games, arguably.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, offensive line struggles would be one of, if not the top for me. And um, I think my other thing would be, which kind of goes in hand with it, is the lack of the running game, right? Which you
Yeah.
talked about, because you become so one-dimensional. It's not like you don't have solid backs in Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet.
Hmm.
Um, and it was fun to see Charbonnet kind of blossom a little bit towards the end of the year. I was a little bit like, I don't know, he seems like a fun, physical back, but I was kind of meh on him, and
Yeah.
he looked better at the end of the year. But you can only do so much when Ken Walker's getting hit in the hole like that, right?
Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah. And I mean, and he was down like, it felt like half the games.
yeah.
Uh,
So those are my biggest things. I don't have too much issue with the defensive side of the ball. I mean, maybe you want oops, some consistency at your linebacker position, which I mean you had throughout the end of the year with Ernest Jones, with Tyrese Knight. Um, I'd like to see. Oh, that'll we'll talk about that at the end of the show. Um, and I don't know what they'll do to look. I'm sure they'll look to add, in the off season. But yeah, what were your biggest issues with the season?
I think, I mean, the offensive line certainly is like the glaring one. It's the one that gets all the attention. And yeah, it does bleed over into the running game. But I think oh, we're gonna be controversial here. DK Metcalf, very mid this year.
Mm.
Couldn't hold on to a ball to save his life, especially in the it was the Detroit game, uh,
Oh yeah.
where he had a
Yeah.
couple fumbles, that eventually led to scores. And I mean, that game like was certainly I think the worst for the team. Absolutely destroyed. Like, let the defense let the actually I'm not sure if that's true. There might have been a defensive touchdown. Um, but yeah, the Lions put up 42 points, which kind of can happen, right? If you're trying to win a ball game. And I mean, 2024 Jared Goff is a menace. It's certainly not like um, immoral or inexcusable to lose to him. But it was rough, in that game especially. I mean, and that's one of kind of what I was talking about earlier with the box score lies to you, kind of belies the real frustrations of watching the team. Is the Seahawks scored a ton of garbage time points in that game. So like after the first half, it was over basically. Um, Gino came out and like put up. Gosh, hold on. Ba, 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 ba. Uh, I'm pulling up this game. I gotta, because the box score is really funny about this one. Um, so after the first half, Seahawks are down 21 to 7, and then that quickly runs out to like 28 to 14 pretty early in the second
Oh
half.
yeah.
And then it just doesn't get um, meaningfully better. Like they don't get any closer to winning the game. Uh, but Gino still goes out there and puts up, 400 yards, um, a one touchdown and one interception. But he's, doing a lot of this garbage time work to like get the team closer, and he's carrying the team on his back, maybe pushing too hard, whatever. We've talked about that. Um, so that box score kind of lies, but that's really the only time I can think of that the team actually got totally destroyed, like had not really a chance of winning from the start. Like the next biggest loss is the Buffalo Bills, which was cameo cat. Uh,
Oh, I was like, Josh Allen? Hello?
maybe. Imagine, right? Just right here. He's in the living room playing Gran Turismo. Um, but no, yeah, lost to the Buffalo Bills like by 21 points. Which again, whatever. Josh Allen's a menace. It's fine. You can stomach a Josh Allen loss. But most of the other games felt competitive, for better or for worse. Like the games you don't want to be competitive, like the Jets or the Bears, they were competitive for
Yeah.
various reasons.
Well, and then just to
That Bears game,
piggyback off
sorry.
that, You look at the losses, and this is always a thing you do, right? When it's either you're coming down to the end of the year and you're really close and you're like, oh, if they had won this game and they won that game. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I mean, the Bills and the Lions, I feel like were a different level of team than you were this year, and that's fine.
Yeah.
The Lions have been their rise over the last few years under the kneecap biting man have been remarkable, and the Bills, it's just maybe they figured it out this year, and they won't get scared by the boogeyman, that loves ketchup in Kansas City. We'll see. But you look at this season for Seattle, that Giants game is the biggest one that sticks out, right? You
Hmm.
lose to Daniel Jones, who is now a practice squad guy,
Yeah.
and the Giants, the Saquonless New York Giants. Um, and that was just a horrendous game itself. The 49ers game was obviously frustrating on Thursday night. They were largely within that one, I felt like, and they
Hmm.
lose by 12. You look at the Bills, yeah, the Rams game in overtime, that one.
That's the one that if they win that game, they go to the playoffs.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean those two to me, it's just like there's those two. The Packers lost. Yeah, so three kind of largely uncompetitive games.
Yeah.
Um, the
There's
Vikings game,
that's
like,
another one. Yeah.
is fascinating. I don't know if you necessarily deserve, which deserves an interesting word, deserve to win that game, but it's a 3-point game, right?
Yeah.
Against a team that battled the Lions there for the NFC North crown. So yeah, I mean it's frustrating to see how close those ones were, and um,
You know, it
you
was if
talk
they won
about
if they played that
DK.
game on the road, they would have won.
That's another thing. You talk about like biggest issues is Seattle going 3-6, I believe it was at home this year, and obviously the home field advantage. We can talk about that too throughout this offseason, but just the lack of how well they've played at home over the last few years,
Hmm.
um, and the home field advantage in terms of the opposing fan bases coming in. Like there's a lot that goes into that, and again, we can talk about that. I want to keep us on schedule. Um, but yeah, that's another thing is going 3-6 at home. Like that's just
That can't
not
happen. At the end of the
no.
day.
It's great that you won a lot on the road, but
Yeah.
it's really weird that yeah, it's kind of backwards there.
Maybe they should start sleeping
Um,
in hotels the night before home games.
have someone pull the fire alarm,
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
go through all the things that the teams go through. I really quick I want to talk about DK because that's another thing. My father um has his thoughts on DK, and just he in his mind the penalties are the biggest thing, and he
Oh
just
gosh,
doesn't
yeah.
like that again, that like DK brings. I feel like the fumbles are somewhat new this year,
Hmm.
right? I feel like that was a different thing this year. But and then I know he only had a few of them because I wouldn't researched it. But the penalties this year and the fumbles, yeah, he just did not have a great year. Maybe some of his lack of production helps JSN have the year that he has.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know, just quickly because we'll keep going here. Are you on the side of trying to move him and get what you can from him? Because then if you move him again, Tyler Lockett's likely gone. You've still got
Hmm.
JSN under contract, but if you move DK, then you're without two of your starting receivers, right? So I don't know. What are your thoughts? Because in my opinion, the potential of what DK can bring you outweighs the penalty aspect. I mean, if he continues to have fumble issues, that's a different discussion to me.
Yeah.
But that's my opinion, right? Is that what he can bring you outweighs the penalties here. Because again, he only took a few, it was less than five this year. So
Hmm.
that's my opinion. Where do you stand on the DK discourse?
I guess the real question is like beyond the penalties and fumbles is like if 700-year-old DK, like if him getting 4 or 5 targets a game, which I think he averaged about 5, most of them like median 3 or 4, like if that production is worth the roster slot at the end of the day. Um, do you start treating him as
Excuse
like
me.
your number 3 target, right? And you use his reputation to pull guys away from
Oh,
your number 1 and your number 2. that might actually be the most valuable thing for DK to do these days, which is, depressing. Father time comes for us all.
Yeah.
Um, I think I think he's worth keeping, like we said, for the continuity. I think if you're keeping Gino, you keep DK because like that connection exists. You don't want to split that up, and you want DK to be like a secondary voice for whatever
Mm,
Gino's saying in the locker room. You kind of want DK there to to back him up as a fellow, member of the old guard, right?
yeah.
Maybe this is total speculation. Maybe he's helped JSN come along and kind of break out this year by I don't know, the leadership stuff, right? Um, I think you keep him for at least another year, and I think you use him to, help train up that next receiving core. Kind of in this transitional phase. It's not a rebuilding phase. This is a team that is built, but it's a team that's transitioning into a new version of itself, right? Like a caterpillar in a cocoon. We're in the cocoon right now, and we're hibernating for this winter. Um, and next year we will break the cocoon and become a beautiful butterfly. Oh, we're hatching out of an egg, like birds, Seahawks, ospreys, circling the nest. See, gosh, oh man,
Oh,
if I was smarter, that would have been there from the start. But anyway,
oh my God. Yeah.
um,
No,
yeah,
I mean, yeah, and that's the thing too is and this you're doing great at the transitions here. This kind of goes into the discussion about Ryan Grubb.
Hello there, everybody. Charles Hamaker here with Circling Seattle Sports. I'm joined by Jen Barnes of Rough and Tumble that we happen to be at right now.
Yeah.
Jen, why don't you talk to me a little bit about what we're announcing today, which is our partnership.
I'm so excited about this. First of all, I just want to say thank you. I think all of us here at Rough and Tumble are big fans of what you and your team at Circling Seattle Sports does. And so, I know you know this, but when you came to me with this idea, it just seemed pretty natural. And it's not just me. I think a lot of people in the sports community in Seattle also really respect you and your team. So it's exciting to kind of see these two things melding together, and we're really excited to start implementing some of the things and then hopefully seeing you guys a little bit more often.
Yeah, and so with what Jen says about seeing us more often, we've got a few things in the works, but you'll see watch parties here. We'd like to do a few different of our community drives, which you'll hear about here in a little bit from now. We've got to make our announcements one at a time. I can't drop everything.
Not everything
Right.
all at once.
But this has been a home for a lot of our team, whether it's myself, our friend, our photographer Liz is behind the camera. Liz is here often, so our team has kind of adopted this place kind of like our own since I saw you at our soft launch. So, it's been great to have that support. And in a lot of ways, and part of the reason I wanted to do this was the Rough and Tumble embodies a lot of what Circling Seattle Sports wants to do. Obviously with women's sports, with the storm and the rain, but just being, having the game on, every game on.
Yep.
How much of that, did you see align kind of even before this idea was mentioned when I first met you?
I think it's always felt like that. I mean, you and your team were here on opening night, and you just feel like you're part of the space, so it felt like really natural. And the fact that you actually cover all of the sports really makes your group stand out. So you are always covering all the rain games, all the storm games. You'd have women's softball, you'd have women's basketball, you'd have women's hockey. We love it. So all of those things, and obviously passionate M's fans, passionate Hawks fans, and passionate Kraken and Sounders fans. So really, from our perspective, those two things meshed really well.
So, you heard it from Jen herself, but this will be our home for all of these events, whether it's you can't make it to these games at home, we're always going to direct you to Rough and Tumble, and obviously the games on the road as well. All these, we're talking about the rain, they've got their schedule out finally,
Yeah, yep.
but this will be our home for that.
Great.
The storm games on the road, this is our home
Yeah,
for all intents and purposes.
I love it.
And when I mentioned it to Jen, when I first had this idea come up, I had this idea come up wearing a pink wig
Yes, you did.
ahead of Megan Rapinoe's final regular season home game for the Reign this past year.
Yeah.
I told her it's because I wanted this to feel genuine.
Yep.
I wanted a connection to feel genuine, and it does.
Yeah.
So that's what this is. Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports, and I'm so excited to finally announce this partnership.
I can't wait.